Revenge films.
Back when my son was still a baby, my mother came with me to take the train to go shopping. We got to the station and had to go up a couple of floors to the train platform, and I was pushing my baby in a stroller, so we decided to use the elevator. There was a couple on the elevator, but there was enough room, so we tried to get in when the boyfriend started smashing on the close button. The stroller got caught in between the door, and when I got surprised and pulled him out, he started hitting the button again and was grinning as the elevator door shut. My mother was furious and started running up the stairs to chase the delinquents down, so I hurried after her and headed to the platform. I found my mother arguing with the couple, and when I got close, they seemed like they were expecting us. They laughed as they started making fun of our clothes.
And you know what else? Your son is a retard! You should all go to hell!
I thought about punching him or something, when a man in a wheelchair being pushed by his girlfriend approached us. They were waiting for a train as well and heard the commotion.
You guys should use the escalator. Didn't you see the note in the elevator saying that the elevators are prioritized for strollers?
The delinquent couple didn't seem convinced.
Why don't you use the escalator? Oh yeah, you can't even walk, can you?
You're such a trash to society.
The man in the wheelchair was shaking with anger. When a station staff came with a slope board for the wheelchair, my mother explained to the staff what happened, and the staff tried to warn them, but they just argued back and make fun of the station staff instead.
Shut up! Working at a train station is for losers! Get out of here!
The station staff didn't try to argue back and played it cool though. I was watching this all go down from the outside, but my anger was reaching its boiling point. Just as I was getting prepared to punch the guy in his face, I looked down and noticed that the delinquent had a backpack with the name of a college on it in his hand. I looked up the name to see if I could find out something about these delinquents, and I was shocked to find out that it was a university that specialized in social welfare. It made me furious to think about what this university was teaching its students when my son started to throw a fit. I knew that they would start bad-mouthing me if my son started to cry. So I pushed my son to the end of the platform to calm him down. As I passed by the girlfriend, she provoked me.
You ran away, bitch.
But I didn't let it bother me. I could just imagine all the terrible things they would say if my son started wailing here, so I would rather be the one taking the heat. I hadn't forgiven them for all the terribly mean things that they said to us and the nice young man and his girlfriend who came to help. So in my fury, I called up the university. An office worker answered the phone, so I explained what was happening. She seemed skeptical that a student from their school would do such a thing. Are you sure it's one of our students? This just made me madder, so I moved the stroller to a safe area and ran over and grabbed the delinquent's girl's bag and ran back to my stroller.
Hey! Give that back, bitch!
The girl tried to chase me, but the station staff stopped her for me. While she was being held back, I quickly went into her backpack and got her name from one of her school books and gave the office worker her student ID number. Her boyfriend is here too. I'm pretty sure he goes to your school too. Okay, please hold. After leaving me on hold for a while, a professor who claimed to be their teacher picked up the phone, so I explained to him again what had just happened.
I'd like to speak with them in person.
So, I put my phone on speakerphone, threw the backpack back at the girl, and held up the phone to their faces.
You think you can call the cops after stealing my backpack?
The girlfriend was under the impression that the cops were on the phone. The boyfriend jumped in.
Yeah, we didn't break any laws. The police can't do jack shit. See what I mean? You retards are crazy.
He acted all victorious until they found out what was going on. The professor who had been silent up to this point started speaking.
Hello? This is Professor Peterson from Revenge University. I heard everything.
They recognized the name and voice and realized that it wasn't just a bluff, and both of them went pale.
No! This is a misunderstanding, Professor! It was just the heat of the moment, you know?
Yeah, it wasn't anything personal. They're all taking this way too seriously.
They started making all kind of excuses.
Miss, I'd like to speak to you in person. Do you think you can stop by the school when you have time? Here, take my number.
After he hung up the phone, the delinquents continued to badmouth us.
You old hag! How dare you steal my bag and tell on us to our school?
You all are pieces of shit! Take your retarded shit somewhere else!
They were furious that I called their school, and I just watched as they continued to escalate on their horrible remarks. The guy in the wheelchair's girlfriend was quiet up until then, but finally opened her mouth. I've got this entire conversation recorded, alright? After hearing this, the two went pale again and ran away. Well, everyone there knew that it was way too late to run. We had their names and their school, so we let them go for now. After they had disappeared, we all exchanged numbers and apologized to the station staff and thanked him for his help and decided to call it a day.
Oh, there's no need to apologize. I'm so sorry that all of you had to go through all of that.
Honestly, it was thanks to him that I was able to identify the couple, and I was very grateful that he was on our side. A few days later, we had a meeting at the college with all parties involved: the parents of the delinquent couple, professors, and other board members of the university. The girl who had recorded the conversation brought a copy of the evidence, and we all listened to it together, and everyone was questioned. After that, the board members left the room to discuss it among themselves for a moment, while the professors scolded the students. The couple and even their parents started making all kinds of excuses, but the professor completely shut them down. The couple must have not expected things to get so out of hand because they seemed so panicked. I almost busted out laughing, but my mother caught me and glared at me to hold it in. A few minutes later, the board members came back.
There's no way that we can allow students like these to enter the real world like this.
So, it was decided. After thoroughly discussing what to do with the couple, they concluded to take away all of their credits for that year, and all of their credits that they had gotten from on-site training for all of their years. In other words, their graduation was postponed due to a shortage of credits. They would have to contact the companies that they had gotten into to tell them that they weren't going to graduate on time, so they would have to cancel those jobs as well. Also, everything that happened would be posted on the school notice boards online. So, whether they wanted to drop out or redo their classes would be up to each family. The board members explained everything so coldly, like a judge handing out a verdict. We were all surprised at the extreme measures that they went to. We expected them to get scolded badly and felt that they owed us an official apology, but we didn't think that they would be punished this much. After hearing the decision, the couple's parents begged them to reconsider, but the professors and board members refused. We all left after that, and we gave the man in the wheelchair and his girlfriend a gift of apology for getting them involved in such a messy matter and went left, but the parents chased us down and started yelling at us.
You guys just ruined our children's lives! How do you plan to take responsibility for that?
I guess from the way they put it, their kids decided to drop out of college. They wouldn't get off our back, so I held up the memory card with the recorded conversations. Hey, would you rather us press charges? After hearing that, they all split like baby spiders. It was pretty shocking to find out that such inconsiderate people had acquired jobs in social welfare in the first place. They mentioned that they had on-site training as well, but I was curious how they got credits for that. I'm sure they were just playing the part at the time, but I'm glad that I was able to prevent such ignorant people from graduating. They managed to hurt many people in one incident. If they were to get a job in social welfare, it would be devastating to think of the number of people who would fall victim to their ignorance. All things considered, I think the college made the right call. I'm glad I was able to prevent a potential catastrophe from happening. I met my husband Brian back when we were in college. We were in the same tennis club, and I was a first year, and Brian was a third year. He approached me and we started dating, but there was another girl named Jenny in our tennis club, who Brian used to date before he entered college. Jenny was the same age as Brian, but she was only in college for 2 years for general education, so she was already in the workforce when I entered college, so I had never met her before. They had dated for about 6 months in their second year, and I'd heard from Brian that she just suddenly dumped him one day. After that, I started dating him, and we continued our relationship until I graduated and entered the real world. Things went smoothly, and we got married when I was 25, but a terrible incident occurred at our wedding. The stylist for my wedding was a lady that our wedding planner introduced to us named Karen. Karen seemed kind of awkward from the beginning, but she was flexible about my requests and gave me professional input as well, and I didn't have a problem until the big day. Finally, right before it was time to walk the virgin road with my father, Karen approached me.
Here, let me fix up your eyelashes real quick.
So, I let her make some final adjustments to my makeup. I had worked with Karen all the way up until that day, and it was nothing out of the ordinary for the stylist to fix the makeup last minute, so I didn't think much about it. Karen was using a brush-type concealer from a famous overseas brand. Basically, something similar to a paintbrush with skin-toned ink. Karen finished touching me up and the song started playing, signifying my entrance. Right before the doors opened, Karen gave the final brushes to my cheeks and the doors swung open to my guests' applause. I looked over to Brian, who looked a little pale for some reason. The priest, our parents, and even the guests all had terrified looks on their faces. Why does everyone look like they just saw a ghost? I didn't even imagine that it could have anything to do with my makeup because I had just gotten it touched up by a professional. Maybe it's my dress? I looked down, but it was as gorgeous as I had remembered. Every step that I took with my father down that virgin road took me one step closer to Brian, and the closer I got to Brian, the more apparent his awestruck face was. Finally, when I let go of my father's hand and went to hold Brian's hand, my older sister who was sitting in the front row jumped on me and started rubbing my face with her handkerchief. Normally, rubbing the bride's face with a handkerchief would be unacceptable behavior, but my sister was sobbing as she rubbed my face with all her might. I was completely confused and lost for words. I began panicking. Even in such an unusual situation, no one, not even my mother nor Brian, came to save me. Even the priest looked completely confused, and finally my sister was calmed down by my mother and returned to her seat looking shocked. But the ceremony continued on, and the priest started asking us to give our wedding vows. We were already past the point of no return, so the ceremony pressed on, while all the guests and relatives sat and watched in shock. Finally, the ceremony was reaching its end. Brian and I gave our last bow and we exited the room as the doors shut behind us. The moment the doors shut,
What the hell happened to your face?
Brian almost seemed relieved to finally be able to get those words out as he grabbed my shoulders and yelled at me. He told me to check myself out in a mirror, so I went back to the dressing room and looked into the mirror. What happened to my face? I instantly wish I had never looked. I looked like Post Malone in a wedding dress. That is, when I finally understood the meaning of my sister's unusual behavior and the shocked looks on everyone's faces. I needed an explanation, so I looked for my stylist, but she was nowhere to be found. Not only that, but she also wouldn't even pick up her phone. Oh no, we just finished the ceremony. What am I gonna do about the reception party after this? Brian and his mother came to the dressing room shortly after, demanding to see the stylist who had ruined the most important day of my life. They looked like they were out for blood. In the meantime, my sister came to try to fix me up the best she could to somehow manage the current situation. It wasn't a professional job, but I was somehow able to undo my Post Malone look. We decided to worry about it later because we had to attend the reception party, but there were some unusual incidents here as well. The MC was also someone that our wedding planner had introduced to us, who was supposed to be a well-experienced wedding MC, but she definitely didn't show it. When we saw some footage of her previous gigs, it seemed completely normal, and her hourly rates were much cheaper than the wedding package that the venue had prepared for us, so we chose her. But unlike the videos that we were shown, she could barely form complete sentences, and kept going back to her notes like a complete amateur. It was obvious that she was drenched in her own sweat, and it was almost painful just being there. After everything was finished, I looked back at what was supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime experience and was pretty much traumatized to say the least. The MC didn't even care to say goodbye and just hurried off after she was finished.
What the hell was up with that makeup disaster at the wedding? And who the hell was that stylist?
I was so mad and had so many questions, but I just couldn't get a hold of her. I told her parents it was just a random mental breakdown that my stylist had, but of course, no one was satisfied with that answer. She had ruined my wedding after all. I had gone to enough friends' weddings and had been waiting so long for this day and had been preparing so much since it was decided, and everyone knew this, so there was no way they were just going to let it slide as a mental breakdown. Such thoughts stuck with me as we started our new life together. Things were going smoothly and we were living a peaceful life. One day, Brian told me something shocking. During the 6 years that we had been dating, his ex-girlfriend Jenny had been stalking him. And on top of that, I found out that Jenny was currently working in the wedding industry and her wedding planner was one of her friends. I connected the dots and quickly figured out that the whole thing was a big scheme to ruin my wedding. The stylist and MC were ordered by Jill to ruin the ceremony and reception party and had received a payment of $1,000 each. The stylist had successfully accomplished her mission, but the MC got cold feet and didn't go through with her part. But the wedding planner and stylist spent the past 6 months with us to work on this wedding. How could they ruin the happiest day of my life for a mere $1,000 with a smile on their faces? I was furious. I mean, unless I get divorced or something, this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Ugh. It's not like a film shoot where we can just gather up everyone again and do another take. By the way, the original plan for the MC was to pretend like she misread the script and say, "Congratulations for overcoming your STDs that you got from prostituting. Have a great marriage." And Brian and Jenny's baby was killed by the bride. She was going to read false stories into the narration. Well, thank God that she didn't go through, because if she had executed that plan like the wedding planner and stylist, things would have really gotten out of hand. I'm glad that she got scared last minute. Brian was trying to move on with her life and was going to keep it all a secret from me. He had a very peaceful personality, but after hearing everything, I was so depressed that I went home and cried for a while. Brian was there to soothe me, but I know how mad he was inside. He took extreme action and went after Jenny, the wedding planner, the stylist, and the MC. He exterminated them socially and went after them legally and got us a hefty amount of compensation and a signed contract from all of them. Everyone besides the MC claimed to be innocent and ignored the content-certified messages that were sent to them, so Brian didn't hesitate to take them to court. He also brought all the legal evidence to Jenny's boss and demanded repercussions. The stylist and Jenny tried to run, but Brian sent the legal documents to every wedding venue in the country, so even though they tried to find jobs at other wedding venues afterwards, they were unable to, and pretty much finished in the industry. I'm glad that they won't be working on weddings anymore in the future. I mean, who would want to hire wedding planners, stylists, and MCs that conspired to ruin someone's wedding? We ended up receiving enough compensation to be able to do about 2 more weddings and reception parties. So we originally planned to go to Hawaii for our honeymoon, but instead, Brian spent that money to take me on a Euro trip to see London and Paris, which were places that I had always dreamt of visiting to make up for the ruined wedding ceremony. It was a wonderful honeymoon. Also, although we couldn't redo the ceremony, Brian suggested that we retake our wedding photos and surprised me by hiring famous overseas makeup artists and stylists to help us take a picture. We sent these pictures to our close friends via email and postcards. It was quite shocking to be turned into Post Malone on such a big day of my life, but overall, I'm very happy that I was able to reach a new level of appreciation and trust with Brian that will last us forever.
This is a story about how I got revenge against this company that I used to work for. I started working there right after college. At first, everything seemed normal. On my first day, my boss told me, "Go out there and get me some clients!" So that's what I did. Day in and day out, I went into the city looking for clients. But in the beginning, I had no idea how to get new clients. So I asked my seniors to help me out. But they didn't really have time for me. All they cared about was themselves. On some days, they told me to wait somewhere and totally forgot about me. Then there was the morning meeting. I had 0 clients, so they yelled at me all the time. The hours were 8 to 5, but I had to work overtime every day. I usually got home at midnight. But the thing is, they didn't even pay me for the overtime. One day I had to go to the doctor's, so I told my boss that I was leaving at 5 p.m. sharp. But the next day, one of my seniors came up to me. "Hey, why are you leaving before me, huh? You kidding me?" He was furious. And as you can imagine, people quit all the time. Whenever someone quit, the boss said, "We didn't need him anyways." And he went on for hours bad-mouthing our ex-colleagues. He sometimes said to me, "A robot can do a better job!" More and more people quit, and I had to work longer and harder to fill their void. I was pretty unstable mentally. One day, when I was talking to a colleague during break, "Stop slacking!" The boss came in and yelled at me. Things were getting worse by the day. Then something really bad happened. This was when I decided to get revenge. We were going on a business trip for an exhibition. They made me do everything. I worked around the clock to get things ready. But right before leaving for the trip, "If you don't hand out more business cards than me, I'm gonna beat your ass," said one of my seniors. The exhibition started. I tried to talk to as many people as possible, but after lunch, my body started to itch for some reason. I went into the bathroom and realized that I had rashes all over my body. I realized that I was losing it. The itch was pretty bad. I could barely stand still. But I kept handing out business cards. After the event, I came back to the company, exhausted. Then the boss said, "Meeting in 5. We'll be here as long as it takes." My body still itched like hell, but I had no choice. First, he asked everyone how many business cards we gave out. My senior was messing around all day long, so I beat him by a lot. I felt good about this. My boss got furious with him. But then he decided to take it out on me. "Hey, clean up the room and make a list of everyone's business card. A rash? I don't care. Here, take the keys." I just wanted to break down and cry. After I was finished, it was past midnight. I could barely walk straight from the rash, and all the trains were long gone. But I had to go home. So I started walking. My mom waited up for me. When I saw her, I was so relieved. I just passed out in the entrance hall. She saw the rashes on my body and she rushed me to the hospital. The doctor took a look at me and said, This isn't good. I'm surprised you haven't lost your mind yet. Then he gave me a bunch of shots. After the shots, the rash on my body went away. But on my way home, I told my mom, I can't take this anymore.
You're still young. You can always get a new job.
I was relieved to hear that, but at the same time, I started to feel angry. But I still got some unfinished business, I said while gritting my teeth. I decided to get revenge. First, I talked to one of my friends who used to work here. Apparently, once he told them that he was leaving, they kicked him out of the company on the spot and said, "Fine, but we're not paying you." And they really didn't. Also, one of our seniors threatened him, saying that, "I used to run with gangs. Don't try anything stupid." Then I called up another friend and decided to meet up. I told him everything that happened. He was thinking, "So, when are you gonna quit?" "Tomorrow." "All right." Then he left. The next day, I launched the Skype app on my iPod Touch and headed out to work. I said good morning, but they ignored me. This was normal. Then the morning meeting started. My senior said to me, "Hand over the documents from yesterday." So I did. At the same time, I told him, I quit. Take care of the rest. "All right, I'll call the manager," he replied with a smirk on his face. The higher-ups showed up and we all started talking. My senior and my boss, who always harassed me, started saying things like, "It's such a shame. You were working so hard. Blah 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 blah." It was so annoying. Then he said, "Oh well, get your things together and leave, I guess. By the way, you're not getting paid for this month." I replied, "What? No. Pay me for what I worked for." "Hey, just leave without making a scene, okay? Trust me, you don't want to do this." He replied, "What? Hell no!" I replied. Then he snapped and kicked the table. He grabbed me and said, "Hey, don't push it, kid!" "Bring it," I said to him. Then the stupid senior came in and said, "Hey, kid, I used to run with gangs. If you don't want to get hurt, leave now." "Really? Fine. Call them up then," I replied. "Seriously? You're dumber than I thought." He started laughing. Then someone started playing loud music in front of the company. Everyone in the room looked surprised except for me. "Come on now, where's your gang? Call them," I said. There was this patch of land in front of the company, and it was now filled with black cars with tinted windows. That's right, my friend was a leader of a gang. When I told him about my senior, he said, "A gang? Don't worry, I'll help." They could hear everything we were saying via Skype. He told me that if they tried anything, he'd come in to help me. "They're with me," I said to them. Both of them started to panic. I could see it in their faces. "Hey, where's your gang? Don't tell me you were lying," I told him. His eyes started to swim. Then I sat back down and said, "All right, can we talk now?" with a big smile on my face. Things went pretty smoothly after that. They agreed to pay me in full, so that was nice. "Hey, if you don't want to, it's fine. You can probably sue me for blackmail or something," I said to them. No, we would never," the CEO replied. His voice was shaking. "You better watch your back, dickhead," I replied to him with a smile. Then to my senior I said, "Hey you, look at me when I'm talking to you." Pretty basic stuff, right? I was pretty satisfied, so I left. As I was leaving, the girls at work applauded me. Apparently, they were being harassed by them as well. They thanked me for putting them in their place. I stepped outside and saw the gang members. "Nicely done," they said to me. "Thanks for all the help," I said back to them. My friend came up and said, "Hey, need a ride?" "I can't go home in that," I replied. They all started laughing, and the company sent me my money right away. And it looked like they learned their lesson. One of my friends who still works there called me up and said, "Hey, things have gotten much better here. Thanks, man." Afterwards, I started working for a different firm. Things were so much better here. I really enjoyed working with everyone here. "You like this place? But work conditions here are terrible," one of them said to me. But honestly, compared to my last company, this place was like heaven. By the way, they stopped going out for drinks after work at my old company. Why? Because they were scared of running into me in the city. That senior was just bluffing, I guess. But there are people who are connected, so you should be careful. Either way, I don't want to end up like him. So I'm gonna stay humble and be nice to everyone from now on.
I received a call one day telling me that my cousin Christina was getting married. She was my father's older sister's daughter, and my mother received an invitation to her reception party too. But my mother is a teacher, and she already had a field trip planned for the day, so she couldn't attend. Oh, jeez. I bet Karen's going to get on my case if I don't show up. My father had passed away in his 30s from cancer, but when he left us, Aunt Karen blamed us.
It's your fault that my little brother died. You better not try to come to me for sympathy.
Karen had been very mean to my mother back then. My mother became a widow in her mid-30s, but she had never asked my aunt for any money or help raising me or my sister. She had provided for and raised us single-handedly. That's why me and my sister hated Karen for being so mean to our mother. But our mother was a very honorable person and was always very civil towards that mean lady. Christina's reception party was going to be held in a city away from both the bride and groom's hometown. The wedding itself was planned to be a small ceremony with just close relatives. My sister, Judy, flew with our other grandparents to the city. They all arrived at the hotel that the reception was to be held at, but upon arrival, they were told by the hotel that there were no plans for a reception party that day, and everyone was extremely confused. Relatives and work-related guests, as well as friends, gathered there, and over 200 guests were stuck there, confused and panicked about the situation. Even worse, no one was able to get a hold of the bride or the groom, or any of their parents. And just like that, there was a huge crowd that was completely lost. Judy and the other guests all triple-checked their invitations to make sure they were there at the right place on the right day. And they concluded they were exactly where they were supposed to be when they were supposed to be there. Judy talked with the people at the hotel to somehow get the situation under control. When she found out that all their room reservations as well as the reception party itself was canceled 2 weeks prior. Obviously, everyone started panicking. Most of the guests had taken time off work and was far away from home, so everyone had paid a fair amount of money just to travel there, just to find out that the reception party was canceled. And since they had traveled there, planning to stay at the hotel, suddenly there were over 200 people with nowhere to even sleep. Most of the people just gave up and went their own ways at this point, and the ones that stayed started calling up their friends in search of some sort of explanation. Judy stayed behind because she couldn't leave our grandfather and grandmother behind, and at the same time was secretly excited to know how things would turn out. Some of the guests tried to book a room for the night, but even though the hotel cooperated with them, it was a busy season, and most of the hotels in town were fully booked. Even if they just wanted to fly back, their tickets weren't changeable, so they were stuck there. The younger ones, like my sister, weren't too worried about it though. They figured they'd find a 24-hour diner or something to kill time. Finally, about an hour before the scheduled time of the reception party, my sister finally got a hold of the bride and groom and found out what happened. Basically, they had changed venues and neglected to notify the guests. There was another venue that Christina had originally wanted to do the reception party, but they settled on the hotel because that venue was booked. However, when she was notified that there had been a cancellation and it was open that day, she begged to do it there. But when they called the hotel to tell them they were canceling, they were charged the cancellation fee and told that the discount for the guests that were staying there would no longer be applicable.
Then you guys find me a cheaper hotel.
Christina tried to make the hotel take responsibility, but of course, they didn't comply.
That hotel has no common sense.
I heard that she yelled at them over the phone. The more I heard, the more it became apparent which side was lacking common sense. Like mother, like daughter, I guess. Speaking of mothers, my aunt stood on her pedestal as she spoke to my sister and the other guests.
Hurry up and come over here.
But there was no way they could get there unless they had wings or something. So after hearing the situation through Judy, they left. They all decided to charge them for their travel fees later and called it a day. How unbelievably selfish to not even apologize for their wrongdoings and try to tell people to hurry over. As expected, not a single person ended up going to Christina's reception party. The guests left one by one, and after booking a flight home for my grandparents, Judy stayed behind to sightsee and spent the night at a diner and flew home the next day. I expected Judy to complain about everything, but all I heard were fun stories of the great places that she checked out and how much fun she had. I asked if she wasn't mad at all, and she said that she hated Aunt Karen and our cousin Christina because they always talked trash about our mother. And the only reason she went in the first place was because our mother had asked her to attend, and that she was glad the whole thing got called off. She planned to charge them for the flight and other expenses, so she was happy that she pretty much got a free vacation paid by them. What an optimist. But not everyone felt that way. Most of the guests were furious, I heard. My sister was laughing when she told me that the reception party was probably empty because everyone went home without attending, so it must have been a terrible party. In reality, it was exactly as Judy predicted. They were able to use the venue that Christina wanted to use so badly, but since none of the guests showed up, it was just the venue staff, the MC, and the parents. No one was even paying attention to the videos and letters that the parents wrote to their children, and it all ended with Christina screaming her lungs out. Naturally, Christina got divorced with her husband right away. Her screaming at the end of the party didn't help either, but her husband's parents were very upset with the situation, which ruined the two families' relationship, and they fought over which family would pay for the cancellation fees and the other compensation fees for the guests. Apparently, they're still fighting over the whole money situation even after they're divorced.
It was the hotel's responsibility to notify the guests.
That was Karen and Christina's argument, which obviously made no sense, and they were shut down pretty easily. Then they switched targets to the relatives.
Christina's marriage was ruined because you guys didn't show up to the reception party. You owe us all compensation.
Karen threatened to sue them, but everyone knows that the best lawyer in the world couldn't win that case for them, so no one's worried about it. Both the bride and groom had the entire chain of events exposed to their workplaces and other friends and relatives. The rumors spread like wildfire and everyone pointed fingers at them, and they became so uncomfortable that they had to quit their jobs. The groom has locked himself in his room ever since. Ever since the incident, every time we have a family gathering, everyone from my father's side of the family brings it back up, and Aunt Karen always starts going crazy. But it wasn't just my mother who had been insulted by Karen, so everyone just takes advantage of the opportunity to get her back. My father also had a brother, and apparently Karen had been bullying his wife as well for a long time. On top of that, when my uncle's second son didn't make it into the college he was studying for, she insulted him so badly, and my cousin was so depressed that he couldn't leave the house for over 6 months after that. Well, he did make it into that college the following year and is doing perfectly well now. But still, my uncle had enough reason to hate Karen even more than my mother. Now that the tables were turned, he went all out on her after finding out about Christina's divorce and unemployment. He just kept rubbing it in like that, and Karen would just turn red and get all hysterical every time. My mother isn't the type to add fuel, and just sits back and watches it all go down. But after everyone leaves, she laughs about it. That was pretty funny. Aunt Karen and Christina always would make fun of Judy for being single, but that was just because they would catch her at those times in her life and treat her like she had never had a partner. But honestly, Judy was way more popular than Christina will ever be. I mean, she could probably get married tomorrow if she really wanted to. but she prefers being single so she can work and repay our mother. Whenever I see my uncle ripping on Karen, I always think that he's taking it too far. But a part of me also feels like she's getting what she deserves. She should have known that karma can be a bitch.
I've been married to my wife for a few years now. We're not newlyweds anymore, but we're still pretty young. We just had a baby together. Life was good. But then I found out that she was cheating on me. Somehow, the evidence ended up on my computer. We both had the same type of computer, but she got hers after mine, so it was much cleaner than mine. So there's no way she accidentally used my laptop. One day, I found an SD card in my laptop. That's when I found evidence about my wife's affair. Not sure if it was her or the guy who was into this kind of thing, but they filmed themselves doing it. I started to panic. At first, I couldn't believe my eyes. I watched it over and over again, but it was definitely my wife. But how did it end up in my laptop? Did she plant this on purpose? That can't be. But the other day, I saw her using my laptop. I didn't think much of it at the time. I guess she used my laptop by accident and put the data in there thinking it was hers. We didn't use each other's laptops, so she probably thought I would never find out. That day, I came home early from work. When I opened the living room door, she jumped.
You're early today.
She said. I bet I scared the crap out of her. It was just a matter of time before she noticed that she was using my laptop. So if I hadn't come home early that day, she probably would have noticed her mistake and deleted the files. From time to time, I took care of the baby so she could go out with her friends. But now, I'm not sure what she was up to. I wanted to collect more evidence, so I offered to look after the baby for a day. Needless to say, I put the SD card back into her laptop. Then I logged into her computer for the first time. We didn't have passwords because we had an understanding. After a while, I found out something shocking. I knew this had been going on a while, but she's been seeing him since before we got married. In the video, you sure you don't want me to use a rubber?
Sure, I already found a husband, so he'll take care of it.
What? It was shocking enough that she was having an affair right from the start. Now the kid might not even be mine? I started feeling dizzy. I kept quiet though. I decided to do a DNA test. Turns out, he's not my kid. They've been together for a long time now, so it was probably the guy's. Why did I marry her? Why did I work so hard to provide for them? I didn't know what to do. I was so upset. I went to talk to a lawyer. Needless to say, I was going to get a divorce. I also hired a detective to gather evidence. The evidence was piling up. Turns out she was having an affair with her old boss. She knew she was pregnant, but she married me for the money. She was also in debt. Tens of thousands of dollars. She used that money to be with the guy and go on short vacations with him. That was it for me. I had to tell her. What's this? I showed her the SD card. She flipped out. She couldn't believe her eyes. I told her everything. The SD card, the detective agency, the lawyers.
It's not what you think.
Give it up. Look at all the evidence.
He means nothing to me.
Oh, does he? She admitted that she was having an affair, but she begged me to forgive her. So you didn't know it was his kid? Give me a break. She was surprised that I knew about that. I showed her the results of the DNA test. You evil bitch. Too bad. I already got a lawyer.
Wait! No, please don't divorce me.
Of course I'm getting a divorce. You've been seeing him since before we got married, and you made me raise his kid without telling me! There was a reason she didn't want to get divorced. Turns out the guy was from a wealthy family. His dad owned a big company, so he couldn't actually marry my wife. But they were in love, so she wanted his kids. Then she married me for the money. Outrageous! But this is the end of the line. I'm leaving you.
No, please, what am I gonna do?
Not my problem. Go live with him. Not sure if that's gonna work, though. I did my homework. Turns out he's about to marry some girl from another prestigious family. It was a good opportunity for both the families. So there was no way he would let my wife live with him. But I wasn't finished. I'm gonna sue you for damages. But according to the lawyer, this is more than just an affair. She was speechless.
What do you mean?
You actually committed fraud!
What? No!
Well, that's what the lawyer said. You're a criminal.
What?
She fell to the floor. I'll sue the guy for damages too, of course. The next day, I grabbed the DNA test results, pictures from the agency, and the SD card and went to see the guy. Who are you? Call security! He was acting all tough at first, but I called his parents, the CEO, and showed them all the evidence. After that, he didn't know what to say. His dad, the company president, beat him in front of me. I told him that I'll be seeing them in court. I also told them that he was going to be charged with fraud as well. With the amount of evidence, they probably realized that they couldn't make this go away with money. They agreed to pay me for damages, but they looked like an empty shell after I was done with them. Then the two of them got arrested for marriage fraud. The lawyer was right. The guy's father's company's stock value plummeted after the incident. I heard they cut all ties with him. I had a long talk with my ex-wife's parents too. We weren't very close, but they apologized to me over and over again. Then there was the kid. He was still a baby. Plus, I did have feelings for him. But I also couldn't get the guy's face out of my head every time I looked at my son. I didn't think I could get over it, so I decided not to take him. His real parents were in jail, but the guy's parents were loaded. Plus, my ex's parents were still around, so he won't end up in a foster home. The court ordered them to pay me hundreds of thousands of dollars for damages. Money doesn't solve anything, to be honest, but this is more than enough for me to start a new life. Screw them all. I'm gonna go out and live my life. Around 20 years ago, I stabbed someone. I was still a minor, the victim survived, and it was self-defense, so I didn't go to jail or anything. But if something like this happened today, it would be all over the news, that's for sure. Who did I stab? My own father. He was an alcoholic asshole. He was selfish and got violent when he drank. He beat me and my mom every day. It was a cold day in February. I was in 8th grade. It was payday, but Dad took all the money he got and left in his car. My mom looked kind of sad, but I didn't think much of it. They got in fights all the time. I guess I was pretty used to it by then, but that night, something terrible happened. It was around 9 p.m. Mom came running into my room and said,
We gotta go.
We ran into the mountains behind our house. Why so late? It was so cold outside. I had a bunch of questions, but I could tell that this was an emergency, so I obeyed. I was pretty sure it had something to do with Dad. My mom was shaking pretty hard. When I asked her what happened, she took a deep breath and started explaining things to me. That night, Dad was out late. Mom was getting worried, so she went out into the driveway. There, she found him cheating on her with some other woman in the car.
Oh!
She flipped out, grabbed a rock nearby, and threw it at his car window. Then she ran back to the house and got me. Soon enough, we heard Dad screaming around the house. We could hear him breaking the windows. Mom never snapped at him like this, though. I guess she had it up to here with him. Normally, you'd think that the neighbors would wake up and call the cops or something. But with him, this was the norm, so everyone was pretty used to it. Plus, they were scared of him too, so nobody called the cops for us. Mom said,
Let's stay here for a while.
But when I heard my dog whimpering, I knew I had to do something. I ran back to the house. I went back to the house and found Dad screaming, Where's your mother? He was turning red from rage. My dog was laying next to him, struggling to breathe. That was it for me. I jumped on him. But he used to wrestle and I was still a kid. He threw me within seconds. He must have been frustrated about his car or something. He kept hitting me even after I went down. Then Mom came back to help me. She tried to fend him off with a stick, but it didn't work. He threw her to the ground and started kicking her. I tried to help her, but I was beat up pretty bad too. As I struggled to get up, Mom started coughing up blood. But he just kept going. I was so mad at him. I went into the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and tackled him with everything I had left in me. I don't remember exactly what happened after that, but I stabbed him in his side. Dad fell to the ground, struggling to breathe. I stood up, helped Mom stand up, and ran from the house. My dad yelled at me from behind. "You little shit! You're not getting away with this!" But he couldn't get up. I looked back for a second, but I turned around and ran off. We couldn't stay in the house with him around, so we stepped outside. Fortunately, it was around 10 p.m., so the neighbors were still up. "Help! Help! My mom needs help!" I cried out for help. The neighbors came outside and saw us. "Dad beat up Mom! She's unconscious!" I told them what happened. They called 911 for me. I told the paramedics what happened and told them that my mom needed to see a doctor right away. The paramedics saw my bruises and said, "You should come too." So I followed him into the car. The police came and asked me some questions at the hospital. They asked, "Did you stab your father?" Mom woke up and explained to them.
He was just trying to protect me.
After seeing my cuts and bruises, he understood the situation. Still, I had a knife in my hands and was covered in blood. So when he asked me, "Did you stab him?" I had no choice but to say yes. The police went back to the house to look for my dad. They found him on the ground near his car. He was pretty hurt, but he survived. Mom was beat up pretty bad too, but she made it as well. Her relatives all rushed to the hospital to see how she was doing. Her dad, my grandpa, was furious. "Why didn't you tell me anything?" I was shocked to hear that. It was just the three of us at the house, but her parents lived nearby. So if she wanted, she could have asked them for help. At the time, I couldn't understand why she didn't. But maybe she didn't want to worry her family like that. She cared for them very much. After that, I got taken to the station and they questioned me for about 3 days. But thanks to eyewitnesses and evidence of abuse, they ruled that it was in self-defense. They let me go. After Mom got out of the hospital, her parents helped us move out of the house. My parents got a divorce, and Mom and I moved into my grandparents' house. Everyone at my new school heard about what happened. They were all sympathetic and tried to make me feel better, but I just didn't want to talk about it. And I was scared about Dad. What if he comes back and tries to get revenge? We had family and relatives nearby, so we felt pretty safe, but still, you never know. Fast forward 20 years, I got a call from a nursing home. My dad passed away. My dad died a few years back. He got a stroke and got dementia from drinking too much. I'm not sure what kind of life he had after that incident, but I don't think he changed much. I just hope he didn't cause a lot of trouble at the nursing home. But I heard somewhere that when you get dementia, you get less violence, so... Then we got a call from his parents. There won't be a funeral, so don't worry about that. Just wanted to let you know. Now we can finally live in peace. Come by the house when you get a chance. Turns out nobody wanted anything to do with him, even his own parents. Even after 20 years, I still have nightmares about what happened that day. But now that he's gone for good, I think that's gonna change. Mom seemed kind of upset though. I was kind of surprised. I'm not proud about what I did. But at the time, I was just a kid, and there was no other way to save my mom and myself. By the way, I never told anyone about this. I think this will be my first and last time. And now that he's gone for good, I just want to forget about all of this and move on with my life.
The other day, I had to go into work over the weekend. For lunch, I went to this pasta joint near the workplace. It wasn't as crowded as before, probably because of COVID. But there was still a line when I got there. After I got seated, I started looking at the menu. Then, someone came up to me and said,
Excuse me.
I turned around and saw two women wearing flashy outfits. They were probably in their 30s or 40s. Yes, I replied.
Are you alone? If you don't mind, can we share a table?
Sure, I said. I was using a table for 4 by myself, and there were no other seats open, so I said yes. But they had a lot of perfume on, so honestly I didn't want to share a table. But this was downtown. These things happen, I guess. I decided what to order, so I called the waiter over. Then one of the women said,
We're ready to order too. Can we order with you?
Sure, I said. They just got here. But I guess they come here all the time or something, I thought. Then, the waiter got to the table. The women ordered before me. I was kind of annoyed since I called the waiter first, but I didn't say anything. I placed my order after them. Oh, and they ordered so much food. I was pretty surprised. Pasta, pizza, garlic bread, steak, fries, and some chicken nuggets to go. Are they really gonna eat all that? I was kind of worried. And when the food arrived, they started shoving it down their mouth at lightning speed. I felt like I was watching one of those hot dog eating contests on TV. They finished eating within 5 minutes. I didn't know what to say to them. People from other tables were watching too. Then they stood up and said,
All right, let's go.
They walked towards the register and left the restaurant. They must have been in a hurry or something. I didn't think much of it at the time. About 5 minutes later, I finished eating too, so I went to the register to pay. I placed a $10 bill on the tray, waiting for my change. I had the pasta plate and a salad, so $10 was more than enough. I was waiting for my change, but the clerk just stood there staring at me. I asked him, can I get my change? He replied, Huh? Change? Yeah, I replied. The clerk looked at the register, so I took a look. What the? The total was $40. It was way too expensive. I think you got the wrong table or something, I said. Your friends, they haven't paid yet, he replied. I had no idea what he was talking about. I came here alone, I said. But the 2 ladies you were with, they said that you'll get the tab, said the clerk. What? I'm not with them. They just asked me if they could share the table because the place is full. I replied. But you guys ordered at the same time. What? But that's because... We went back and forth like this for a while. Then the waitress who seated me came over and said,
He was alone when he came in.
Finally, he believed me, so I only had to pay for my own food. But everyone there saw what was happening. Dine and ditch. It's a new form of scam. What a bunch of con artists. And the guy at the register still seemed pissed. And so was I didn't do anything wrong. After paying my bill, I gave him my business card. Look, I've got nothing to hide. If you're still not satisfied, you can find me here. Then, I left the restaurant. On my way back, I found the 2 women who sat at my table smoking in front of the station. They had the chicken nuggets they ordered to go. I approached them quietly from behind.
That was so good. It was easier than I thought. Plus, we got some extra food to go. Free dinner.
They were talking about the free food they got. I couldn't take it anymore. I jumped out in front of them and said, That's enough, you 2. Go back to the store now. Hey up. They started laughing at me.
What's wrong with this guy?
Then,
Hey, we ate with you. We kept you company. That costs money, you know.
I snapped. Shut up, bitch. Why the hell would I want to eat with you 2, huh? Then, a police officer showed up. When they saw him, they threw a $10 bill at me and ran to the officer saying,
Help, officer! This guy is crazy! He's trying to hurt us!
Then they tried to run. I snapped again. The police tried to grab me, but I grabbed them before they could make a run for it.
What? We already paid. Let go.
$10? That's not enough. You guys dined and ditched. We're going back to the restaurant right now. I explained things to the officer and he helped me take them back to the restaurant. The manager explained what happened to the officer. He apologized to me. The 2 had no choice but to pay up. They looked upset. After paying, they tried to leave without saying anything. Hey, you're not even gonna apologize? I yelled at them.
What? Ugh, you're so annoying.
She snapped back at me. Looks like you two haven't learned your lesson. I can't just let you guys go. You might do the same thing again. I guess I'll have to arrest you both," said the police officer. Finally, the two started apologizing.
I'm sorry. Please, we'll never do it again.
"Don't apologize to me," said the officer. They ran back to me, got on their knees, and apologized.
Please forgive us. We're sorry.
"You've been doing this for a while, right? No way that was your first time," I asked them.
No, this is our first time. Honest.
They replied. "Really? You guys memorized the menu and even ordered some food to go." "Stop lying. You've done this before, haven't you?" I replied. Then one of them cracked.
We looked up how to dine and ditch online. It said that we had to order at the same time, so we decided what to order beforehand.
"Why though?" asked the police officer.
With COVID and all, business has been really bad, and I barely make any money these days. And I was broke and so hungry. I had no choice.
Then she started crying. "Looks like you got money to buy cigarettes though," I replied.
We're sorry. We're so sorry. We won't buy any more cigarettes. We're sorry.
They just kept apologizing. The police officer let them off with a warning since they paid their bill. Finally, they left the restaurant. They were still apologizing as they left. I was feeling much better now. I decided to go back to work. I felt bad for the restaurant. They didn't deserve all this trouble. Then, I reached into my pocket and found a $10 bill they threw at me. I decided to keep it for all the trouble. I threw it into the donation box at the convenience store near my company. The store staff looked surprised. I guess you don't see a lot of people throwing $10 bills in donation boxes. Anyways, people these days, right? Unbelievable. I'm gonna stay away from downtown for a while.
I divorced Jane about a year ago. There were 3 reasons. First, Jane was having an affair. Second, there were too many differences in expectations before and after our marriage. And thirdly, she was using me just for my money. Jane was 34 and I was 30, and we had no children. Jane was always known for her beauty among me and my friends. I was just a plain guy, so she was always out of my league. I never thought that I had a chance with her, but to my surprise, it was Jane who approached me one day. I took advantage of that opportunity, and after aggressively pursuing her, I was able to marry her quite easily. My income was about $3,500 a month when we first got married. But Jane complained about it almost immediately after we got married.
That's not enough. We need to save money for when we have a child as well. Can you increase your hours?
I loved Jane, so I didn't think twice about it. I expected my salary to be insufficient for the two of us. So after she told me that, I started working Saturdays as well, and worked as much overtime as I could bear. One such day, I got a call from a friend. "You seem pretty intense recently, but is everything okay? I'd like to meet for a chat sometime if you can make the time for it." Well, Jane says that $3,500 isn't enough, and honestly, I was barely getting by when I was on my own. So I don't blame her for feeling that way, now that I have to support us both. That's why I'm so busy recently. I've managed to increase my salary to about $4,500 though. Huh? $3,500 isn't enough. Honestly, if it's just you two, I'd say that even $3,000 is enough to get by and save a little money while you're at it. Yeah, but Jane's thinking about our future child too. She wants to save money for that as well. I'm proud of how well planned she is. Well, you know what they say, love is blind. Yeah, whatever, man. But John ended up convincing me for over 3 hours to have his friend's father, who was a detective, do an investigation. I was shocked at what I found out. I was just an ATM machine. Jane was having an affair too. And before we got married, my in-laws had told me,
We have plenty of savings too, so don't worry about us.
but that was a lie. They were over $300,000 in debt. At this point, however, I still thought I had a chance to repair things. But new facts started surfacing and my in-laws' excuses were so bad, so I changed my mind. First off, I found out that the affair that Jane was having had started 2 years before we even started dating. And it was a junior employee at the same company that I worked at. Jane had been conspiring with him to leech my money. Next, my in-laws had assured me that they were debt-free, but actually were heavy in debt. I found out later that they too were relying on my money. Oh, and all that debt was gambling related. And I couldn't believe the words that came out of Jane when I confronted her.
Well, what matters is that you love me, Jack, right? I love multiple people. If you can't accept that, that's on you. I haven't done anything wrong.
I stood there, speechless from those words, and Jane continued firing.
And the biggest reason is because you were always at work and I was lonely. So it's all your fault to begin with. Understand? $3,500 is not enough. Work more and make more money.
The woman who said that was standing on a pedestal and scolding me. On top of that, my in-laws trespassed into my house.
You're in the wrong, Jack. You reap what you sow.
They took all my household appliances and my hobby collections that I had acquired over the years and sold them without my permission.
Having a hobby is the equivalent to not loving your wife. So this is all your fault.
That's what they continued to tell me until the very day that I got divorced. By the way, I found out that the affair had started 2 years ago on the morning of the day of my divorce. My boss had interrogated the guy and made him confess. I talked to my boss and heard the recordings later and found out the reasons too. Jack makes plenty of money, and he doesn't have many things to spend it on. So we'd be doing him a favor by spending his money for him. We'd be helping the economy too, so we'd be killing 3 birds with 1 stone. In the end, I was too tired to get heavily involved, so I hired a lawyer who settled on an agreement. The terms were that they would stay out of my life for good, and in return, I had to forfeit my rights to any compensation and had to pay $20,000 in alimony. However, if they were to break the contract in any way, I would press charges for everything they owed me. Jane had spent $85,000 of my money split into 2 different accounts without my permission. And I could also press charges for the affair, theft, humiliation, trespassing, fraud, and multiple other charges for a total of over $120,000, excluding the alimony. If any of them came near me, I would sue them for triple that amount. And if it was within 3 years of the divorce, I would also add alimony. The contract explicitly stated all of that and gave them no way out. Under these conditions, I paid Jane $20,000 and divorced her. However, it's only been about a year since our divorce. And the other day, Jane and her parents suddenly showed up at my door.
All of our money is going towards our debt. We can't survive like this. I know you love me, Jack. So I'll give you another chance if you help us pay back our debt. My parents and I are willing to forgive you for everything, Jack. Aren't you grateful? But if you refuse, that means you were playing me all along, and I'll sue you for alimony.
While I was out, they had found my apartment room and broke my window and came into the house and claimed such ridiculous remarks the moment I walked in through my front door. The moment I opened the door to my empty room, I screamed at the sight of Jane and her entire family there. After saying what they wanted, they tried to leave. So I called the police right away. They arrived in 5 minutes, and all of them were arrested. I found out later from the police that they had even stolen valuables on their way out. After that, I just wanted to get rid of them, so I activated the contract. Jane used to be pretty, but she had to work hard as a night worker to pay me for my money, and she started looking all fatigued. Her beauty was her greatest asset, but with a face like that, she couldn't keep customers. And out of desperation, she started whoring herself out and quickly fell to the bottom of society. At this pace, I'm gonna be an old man by the time she pays me back. But I don't want to push her too hard, because after all, she needs to be alive for me to get my money. When I talk to my friends about the situation, they often tell me how evil I am. But I don't get it. It's been about a year and a half since the incident, and Jane approached me just as I expected. So I was doing well. I even found a new girlfriend who I ran a background check on with permission from her parents. I was just too traumatized not to. Everything checked out, so we got happily married. Oh, by the way, I did make that junior employee pay up as well. His parents came to apologize and tell me that they would pay the money. But I wanted the kid to pay for what he did. And he didn't lose his job, so we came up with an agreement that I would receive monthly payments directly out of his monthly salaries. So now I have a worker who will take on any amount of work that I ask him to do and who can't run from the company. I take it easy on him though. I only collect 20% of his monthly pay. But at this pace, his payment will probably last until I'm an old man as well. Hopefully, he and Jane live long lives.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.